Have you ever heard of the Sega Hard Girls? That is short for Sega Hardware Girls. It's an anime series that Sega made a long while back, making humanized personifications of their hardware consoles long before the Hyperdimension Neptunia series did. Well, if you haven't, you can check out that series because the Hyperdimension Neptunia series and the Sega Hard Girl series is crossing over for a game that's about to release in just a couple weeks. Starring my personal favorite character from the series, IF, here is my review of Superdimension Neptune vs. Sega Hard Girls. Superdimension takes place in a post-apocalyptic world that has been reduced to a dead wasteland. IF, a young traveler, seeks out a library known to hold records of the entirety of history, hoping to find out why the world is in the state it is. However, upon arriving, she's drawn into an adventure of her own, across time, as segments of history start to disappear. Now, the plot of this game is a little more in-depth and less focused on comedy than previous spin-offs. You've got a lot of background information, not only for the Neptunia characters in this world, but also with incorporating the Sega Hard Girls into the series in a way that makes sense. Unlike previous spin-off titles, Superdimension is a turn-based RPG that plays similar to the Rebirth games, but with enhancements and additions added on. First of all, we have main exploration in dungeons. In previous games, all you could do was run around, attack enemies, and jump. In Superdimension, we have terrain interaction. You can climb walls, you can pull yourselves across long gaps with a rope, you can do a dashing maneuver to avoid enemies or make long jumps across long gaps, and you can crawl through small crawl spaces and tunnels to get to hidden parts of the stage. Now, although you can freely explore the world map and dungeons, story progression in this game is quest-based. Each time you want to do a side quest or see the next story segment, you have to go and accept a quest from the library from Histoire. This is good, but it also has a bad side as well. The part of this that I like is that it's not entirely linear. You have 4 different time eras you can explore, and you can explore them in any order you want. You can activate the story through the Mega Drive era first, or you can do the Dreamcast era first. It's all on what you want to do. Now, the downside here is that this quest-based system is a little repetitive. A lot of story-based quests are cutscenes, and that's it. You go accept a quest, you go to the Mega Drive era, you watch a cutscene for 5 minutes, and that's it. You have to go back, report the quest, accept a new quest, then go back again. There's a lot of backtracking, and by the time you reach the end of the game, it's really going to feel repetitive to constantly backtrack, especially for those quests that are nothing but a cutscene. Now let's talk about combat, which has seen a lot of significant changes. You no longer set up combos with learned skills like rush skills and power skills. You have an action gauge now that fills up when you do any type of action during your turn, be it moving, using an item, attacking, using a skill, or something else. The nice thing about this is that you can use part of your action gauge to attack one enemy, and if you got plenty left after the enemy is defeated, you can go ahead before your turn is over, walk over to the other enemy, and start attacking them as well. Now, the other additions to the combat system are gems and fever time. When you're going through a battle, gems will randomly appear in the air, and if you walk over to them and jump into them, you'll get rewards. It might heal you, it might restore some SP so you can do skills again, or it might give you points towards your fever gauge that builds up as you go through and attack enemies. That brings us to fever time. When your fever gauge is full, you will see a star gem appear in the stage, and if you jump into it, time will stop. All of your party members will have significant stat increases, the enemy will have to wait quite a while before they can make a turn, and you can basically just go all out against them to get a ton of damage in. Note that EXE skills, ultimate skills, are only accessible during fever time. Now, the final thing that was added on is the use of classes. If you've played games like Final Fantasy V, Final Fantasy Tactics, or Disgaea, you know that a lot of RPGs have different classes that you can change your character to. This game allows you to change classes for characters in the Neptunia series. Basically, classes will change how your stats are oriented and how your stats will grow as you level up the class, but it also gives you different skills. These could be attack skills or healing skills that you use SP for in the middle of combat, or they could be support skills that will decrease the amount of SP a skill takes up, or increase the amount of experience or credits you get during combat. Now, these support skills are kept after they're learned no matter what class you are. Now, this all comes together pretty well, and it really gives the game a lot of customization options that weren't available before, and they're all really needed, because that brings up the difficulty. Boss fights in this game are hard. All of them are. Every time you go into a boss, you're going to struggle unless you do an excessive amount of grinding beforehand. The final boss is a league of its own, but every single boss you go through is going to be a struggle, and you're going to need to have a good formation strategy. You're going to need to have fever time built up, and you're going to need as many EXE skills as you can to rack on as much damage as possible. Now, as far as length is concerned, we aren't talking like a 40, 50, 60 hour RPG, but the game has a good bit of length to it. Your first time through, going through the story-based true ending should take you at least 20 to 25 hours. Then you have New Game Plus, where you can tackle to go get the other two endings, as well as a New Game Plus exclusive secret boss fight to test your skills. Now, as far as presentation is concerned, this game is beautiful. This is a pretty big step up from the previous games of the series. There is a much higher quality cell shading going on. A lot of the enemy models even look almost flawless, even if you've got the game displayed on the PlayStation TV. This does come at a price, though. Frame rate does drop in a lot of different areas, mostly some of the dungeon areas. We're not talking about huge drops, but if you remember frame drops in, say, Hyperdimension Neptunia Rebirth 2, it's about the same here. It's not something that's going to really cause you any gameplay problems, but it's still there, and it's a little bit of an annoyance. Superdimension Neptune vs. Sega Hardgirls is a huge love letter, not only to Neptunia fans, but also to Sega fans. Now, the quest system is a little repetitive, and there are some frame issues as you play through the game, but this game has made a lot of significant changes to the formula that really adds a lot of depth to it. Reviews to Go rates Superdimension Neptune vs. Sega Hardgirls an 8 out of 10. If you have any questions or comments, feel free to leave them below, or head to my site at www.reviewstogo.com.